Hello, friends and readers. Today we are going to continue to look at our story, Mary Anderson's Great Inventions. Our goals are to use text features and search tools to understand what we are reading and to describe the relationship between a series of historical events, scientific ideas, concept, or steps in technology. What we are doing here is we are going to be looking at the sequence of events that happen within the story. So when we're talking about sequencing, we're putting things in order. They are the order of events in which things happen. So first, next, finally. Our clue words can also include before, after, later, at last, afterwards, eventually, meanwhile, and the next day. So when we're looking at Mary Anderson and her great invention, there are two things that we could sequence. We can sequence beginning, middle, and end, but in this case, what we did instead was I wanted to sequence the details of her creating the windshield wiper. So instead of just looking at the whole story, you can look at a section of a text to sequence that. If we were sequencing the whole story, we might say people were having issues with their windshield wipers, so they would rub onions. Then in streetcars and other areas, people were having a hard time to get to work, so Mary Anderson came up with an idea, and then she invented the windshield wiper. That is the events that happened in the story, but when we look closely at what it took for her to create the windshield wiper, we can also sequence those events. So when we look at just one paragraph alone, we can just sequence the events that happen there as well. So some of the key details in this paragraph that we looked at was, in Alabama, she sketched her idea and added notes. This is the first thing Mary did when she was starting to think about the windshield wiper and how to solve the problem of car accidents and snow buildup. Next, she did her own investigating and looked for facts about what drivers needed. Then she worked out a design on paper. Mary had a model built out of quality wood, rubber, and metal. Soon the model was ready to test, and it was fitted on a windshield. The driver moved a handle inside the car, and it caused the blades to move back and forth. It worked. Mary's idea was a gem. So this is the sequence of events of not the whole story, but the events that Mary took in the sequence of the invention and what she did in our one paragraph that spoke about what led her to solve her problem, what led Mary to want to make the windshield wiper. So this is the order of events for that specific time. So in Alabama, she sketched her ideas was the first event, and eventually as we went through this paragraph in the section of text, we realized that finally she was able to take her sketch and turn it into an actual working windshield wiper. She solved the problem that was occurring, and here we focused on the events that led up to this being solved. Again, you can sequence small pieces of text or specific paragraphs when you're looking at a historical event or a historical article. Sometimes when an author is writing it, they give you some background knowledge. And in this story, that's kind of what they did. They told us about the onions and they told us about the sleet so we can get an idea as to why Mary wanted to solve a problem. But when we think about the events that Mary herself took, these are the key details, and this is what we mainly focused on. How did Mary solve the windshield wiper? Well, here's all the steps that she took to make it happen. The other details in the text are very important, but this is the sequence of events that Mary took to make her invention of the windshield wiper. So when you're looking at sequencing a story, we want to make sure that everything is put in order. Mary had to sketch her idea before she could build a model. She had to make sure that she was solving a problem that needed to be solved. So when people are making inventions, they generally help out. And in this case, Mary was able to help drivers become safer and more cars were sold, in fact. So when you're thinking about inventions and when you're thinking about things that help us, you might say, what is an invention that is useful to you? The first thing I can think of being an awesome adult is the dishwasher. I think the dishwasher was a great invention because now I don't have to wash my dishes by hand. So when you're thinking of an invention, think about something that helps you in your day-to-day life, like maybe the stove. Do you have to go collect firewood and build a fire before you cook dinner or help your parent cook dinner? No. The stove is an invention. So think about these inventions that might help you. So an invention is something that is built or created. So think about how that might help you. And this sequence of events tells us how Mary got to the windshield wiper and how that invention helped others.